Okay, we're back. Krissy, why is this so you're saying that this you might not think that this is the standout because you think that most people would choose Criminal?
Yes, I feel like that's the kind of go-to song from this album that everyone touts.
Hmm.
I do think like Shadow Boxers is up there. Yeah, I think Criminal is the one that people point to as the kind of standout track from this album.
Yeah,
And that song's great too. Again, I think this album is perfect. So Criminal's
sure.
awesome too.
Yeah,
But for me, Shadow Boxer, the way she sings the song title in the song
hmm,
embodies that full-throated feminine self-expression
yeah.
that drew me to her in the first place.
Say more words. Say more words about this. Actually, I think because like you're right to point out the fact that she says the title of the song in the lyrics, right? Which almost might be a little corny if somebody else was doing it, right? Or like when
Sure.
you feel like it's a little too on the nose or something. But with her, nothing's corny. Nothing's corny with her,
No.
is it? How does she do it?
I wish I knew because I would try to replicate it, but Shadow Boxer, I think part of it is that I've never quite when I come back to the song,
Hmm.
I have a new understanding of what she's trying to say with these lyrics.
Hmm.
And I think that's really interesting that the title of the song and the lyrics have kind of a different poetic resonance to me personally in different stages of my life, which I
Yeah.
think is interesting. And that there is like this sexiness to the way the notes kind of come out of her.
Mm.
So such a weird way to it's such a strange thing to hear
I think
myself
I hear what you're
say, but
saying. Yeah, yeah,
there is something just incredibly sexy about this song and the way she sings it and the idea that she's either fighting with herself or she's fighting with something that doesn't exist that's there or I find it interesting.
yeah. There's some fundamental discomfort in hearing a Fiona Apple song sometimes, as pleasurable as it might be on the ear.
Or there's just a humanity to it.
Yeah,
Like it's raw humanity in a way that is like that's why I think it's so interesting again that we go to her pain so often
yeah,
or so quickly as a way to excuse or put a frame around her in a way that makes her a little bit more understandable.
yeah.
But I think the real kind of pull for me towards her is the fact that she's allowing her raw humanity to come forward.
Hmm.
And I mean, I guess that's artistry in for a lot of people, but hers feels stinky and real and raw and sexy and all the things that come with being a real human.
There's something about this album, I mean, at the beginning of her career, where it feels to me like she's kind of messing with jazz and blues a little bit too. Like, I mean, like you talked about the way she sings the title of that song. Like, it's not even to get, like, put my nerdy music theory hat on for a second here. Like, it's not even on the rhythm. Like, she's going against the rhythm. Sometimes it seems a little syncopated. There are songs on this album that strike me, it's as if she's a lounge singer, like playing the piano, but she's trying to subvert that. Like she's sort of saying, I'm going to do this my way. I'm going to take all my musical training. She was a piano prodigy as well.
Hmm.
I'm going to take that sort of form and I'm going to make it my own and turn it on its head, which I feel like you hear in this song. I feel like you even hear it in Criminal a little bit. You definitely hear it in Sullen Girl, which, considering what that song is about, makes it all the more striking. I don't know. Yeah, like you said, she's just willing to sort of lay everything so bare and yet so beautiful. Like there's a beauty in the roughness, in the ragged edges, in the vulnerability, frankly.
Yeah, vulnerability, that feels totally right on. I got to see her tour on this album for
On
this
Tidal.
album on
Wow.
Tidal
What the
in
fuck?
'97 in Richmond, Virginia. Me and my best friend Rachel, our senior year of high school, drove ourselves an hour and a half to go see her play
Yeah.
this album. And
Nice.
we were in the nosebleeds of a giant theater, and I wouldn't have it any other way because
Yeah.
it felt like we were sitting at the piano with her. It was so amazing to see a woman express herself in this way that I just had never seen a human, but let alone a woman do. And that felt powerful. It felt empowering and powerful.
Hmm.
Oh, hell yeah. God, I would have killed to go to see that show. Do you remember who opened for her? Was it a headlining tour?
It was a headlining tour. I actually had to look this up this morning because my memory had conflated me going to see, I thought she was opening for the Counting Crows. In my memory. I was like, oh, I went to see her open for the Counting Crows because I wouldn't have made the trip for the Counting Crows, but I would have made the trip for Fiona Apple. But it turns out it was her headlining.
Damn.
So
18 years old.
I don't remember who opened, but
very cool. Very, very cool.
I feel like I don't know if she'll ever tour again at this point. But also to think about, like, I think we talked about this, like, I talked about this with a friend of the pod about her most recent album, Fetch the Bolt Cutters, which is, a genius work. I don't know that I would want to hear that live or see that live because I feel like it would just be, I too uncomfortable in some way.
I think I see what you're saying. Because it's so, that album is so deeply tied to that first week of COVID for me. That's the reason why it would be a very transportative experience to see that performed live. Is like, I think Shelter in Place hit like this within a day or two of that album dropping, if I'm not mistaken. It's inextricably tied in my mind, and I'm like, damn, that's timely. It was very timely for quarantine, wasn't it?
Dang.
Yeah, it was special. But yeah, so okay, let's take it back to like this. We keep talking about this vulnerability that comes out, like other parts of the music that you felt like really connected to, where you like, was the piano something that you felt really felt like worked for you in some way as a listener? Like what other parts of the album do you feel still stimulate you to this day?
I love the mix. So yes, there's like kind of like quieter Pale Septembers and those kind of quieter tracks. But then there are those like Criminal or Shadowboxer, or there are like songs on the album that make me want to dance, like still.
Yeah.
There's great percussion, like kind of fun bass lines and stuff. And then the piano. The fact that she uses the piano the way she does in opposition to her vocals and in concert with her vocals, that just chef's kiss. So good.
Chef's kiss, yeah, totally.
Well, Krissy, we gave you an impossible task, and we asked you to give us a perfect album and give us a list of perfect albums, in fact. In order to do so, we imagine you had to sort of define perfect for yourself. So if you could tell us, what were your standards for perfection when arriving at this choice?
This is an excellent question. And it's also one of my favorite parts of your podcast. So I'm excited to answer because everyone defines it so uniquely, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it had to have a connection to a part of my life. And it had to be something that I was still listening to today.
Yep.
No skips. Like, I didn't want to skip any song on the album. It needed to still move me in the ways, or in a significant way, like it moved me maybe the first time I listened to it. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think it had, to restate, nostalgic connection, current connection, no skips, emotional connection.
Yeah. That's the recipe, basically, isn't it? That's what we keep hearing over and over again. And to talk about skips for a second like that, there's a writer who I follow, brilliant writer named Musa Okwonga, who I follow. He does a soccer podcast that I listen to very regularly. But he's a beautiful writer and poet himself. And he said this thing about skips on an album where it's like Kendrick does this thing where Kendrick knows how to put in filler. Not every song is the one that's going to, like, you're going to stake a worldview on. But some of those songs need to complement those other sort of like thesis songs so that it makes sense as a whole. And we think about those sometimes as skips because they don't maybe hold as much emotional weight or something like that. But this argument that we keep seeing from people over and over again is that even if there is a quote unquote skip or something that's filler, something that's complementary work to other kind of like pillars of the album, all of them have to be essential, basically, is what we keep hearing from people. And you're restating this as well. Are there any that you see as sort of like supplementary support songs, maybe, that you wouldn't consider pillars of the album?
I think the beauty of the album is that there's a journey from the start to finish. It doesn't, to me, hold the same kind of power when you put it on shuffle as it does when you play it from beginning to end. And I think there is kind of a craft to the journey of the album, which is always a delight as someone who thinks about storytelling and how to take someone on a ride and how to introduce yourself. What's the handshake? What's the, like first date? What's the, like, how does that all progress? Where does it go sour? What's a bad day? And then how does it kind of leave you? I like the twists and turns in the way that Fiona Apple has designed this set list or this track list.
How has your appreciation for this album, and I mean, frankly, just her overall, changed over time? I mean, sometimes people, when they answer this question, they mention that it still means something to them, but it doesn't mean the same thing it meant to them when they first heard it. Do you find that that's the same for you, just because of, how you've changed or how she's changed?
Yeah, I think I have a different relationship to it now, mostly because I'm older. And the fact that I can see a young artist putting their first foot forward in this epic stomp of a way it's just compelling and awe-inspiring, as someone who's 45 and admiring that kind of youthful exuberance and self-confidence. And I think as someone who has, in the last, later in life, come to terms with my own queerness, looking back at my obsession with female songwriters, singer-songwriters, when I was in my teen years, I'm like, oh, I understand in a way that I didn't understand when I was younger.
We could kiss too.
Yeah. I find them sexy because I find them sexy.
Right. Crazy. Novel concept. It's crazy. Yeah.
So I think I have a very different relationship to her and to Fiona Apple as an artist and to this album in particular because of those different perspectives I have in life currently. And then I think, like you said, Michael, her discographies since then, like all the music she's put out since, has built upon and continued to further her artistic voice, her importance in our culture. And it's just remarkable to me that she's been able to continue to bring it and continue to evolve and continue to become an even more amazing artist.
Yeah.
But this is where it started. It's pretty remarkable to me.
Yeah.
I would argue, and I will die on this hill, it is the most satisfying discography to listen to from start to finish. Like it is just it's so satisfying. It's such a satisfying journey.
Yeah.
And it's, maybe due in part to the fact that she's just so talented, but like it's not the same thing all the way through. It feels like she's telling the best story because it just keeps progressing upwards.
Yeah, and she's bringing in different references too, right? Like you mentioned that she was playing more in the bluesy, jazzy realm in Tidal, but she's bringing in more folk and some other references, rock, other stuff later on that, again, helps that evolution. It feels fresh. It feels interesting. It feels relevant.
Also, the singer-songwriter is so different in 2025 than it was in 1996. The whole concept of a singer-songwriter. Spoiler alert, we might have a very special short segment coming with you later this week on another artist who I think has a story that is instructive in terms of like the differences of what it's like for a woman to come up in pop music. It's Chapel Roan. That's what we're going to talk about. But to see it kind of all hit at once, for her to have to kind of ride this wave, maybe part of the reason that we talk about that pain is like maybe one of the reasons is it's like it's remarkable that somebody can so frankly speak about pain in the way that they do and not consume themselves, and like we don't know what it's like, in her real life, right, in her private life. But for somebody to be able to exist that publicly with just the sensations of pain and being an artistic soul and still be doing it is pretty exceptional when we see so many crash and burn.
For her to be vulnerable and express her lived experience and refuse to be boxed in as a victim, as a weakling, as whatever, she continues to defy that and push back and say, hell no, that's not who I am. Right. I'm strong. I stand on my own 2 feet. I am a musical genius. Yeah. I keep putting out amazing music, and I refuse to be boxed in or diminished in any way.
And that only means one thing, you know, like it, or like it means many things, but that what's beautiful, I like that line from Shamika, right, where she's saying, Shamika says she has potential. She still has potential, is what Fiona Apple has always been saying. Is like, this is just a taste. This is just a taste of the vastness that I contain. That's that universality thing that we keep talking about, right? Like that's probably, she has some touch, not to be too woo-woo about it, but I will be woo-woo about this thing. Where it's like, she kind of has touched the source in some ways. Like she has managed to do that in a way very few artists I've ever encountered have. And it sits below what she actually does. I believe that no matter the medium she were to work in, I know she would bring this level of commitment to it.
And her strength in the face of constant critique and constant, meddling and whatever, her backbone is just remarkable. Her strength is remarkable. And the fact that it comes through in vulnerability through her music, I think people think that she then is going to be a pushover, but it's actually her greatest, strength and power. And I think as a society, we're uncomfortable with that kind of woman standing up for herself that way. I think we see it time and time again where we want to tear women down for being outspoken and vulnerable at the same time. I feel like it's what we did to Sinead O'Connor, right? It's like, yes, not okay. But thank goodness that they keep expressing themselves and making this music and allowing our teenage selves to, touch into that kind of full embodied expression.
Yeah. Oh, Sinead. Damn.
I know.
Rest in peace. I'm glad you brought Sinead up because we were remiss not to bring her up earlier in terms of like contextually around Fiona. I think being contemporaries and being similarly principled contemporaries is like it's a big deal. Whoa! Did you just feel that shift in the winds? Did you feel that something changed, Michael? It feels like it might be time for something. But what time is it, Michael?
I think it might be time for.
Dun, dun. The deliberation phase. God, we love theater. We love theater. We really do. You want to go first? Do you want me to?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like, because obviously going into this, like, I was a little biased. I think it's just, frankly, not without saying too much, frankly, it's just nice to have a conversation with someone about art and music in a way that sort of like confirms things that I also believe. And so I'm not going to go into an itemized list, frankly, because I have just valued the experience of being with a like-minded individual who has very similar, I think, beliefs about the world and about what makes great art. And that's all I'm going to say without getting too detailed. So thumbs up for me. Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll go high level too, because I think I've appreciated the approach that we've had to this conversation around her. I don't think we've mentioned record sales once, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe I did. I know I mentioned a Grammy.
I don't even know what her sales are. I'm not going to look them up. I'm not going to look them up. Sorry,
listen,
keep talking.
But I think it's in the spirit. It's in the spirit of Fiona, right? Because there is something outside of the, she's a very successful artist, record sales wise, and accolades wise, Grammys, MTV, and MTV Awards, just all sorts of things that confirm this popularity that I think is important about her. But there's also, she manages to sort of exist outside that conversation too. Michael, you referenced the thing that she said at the MTV, the VMAs, when she won that Best New Artist or something like that it is bullshit. It's important because it represents the commercial ecosystem in which a lot of our fellow artists out there can make a living. Sometimes, some of them, hopefully. God, I hope so, for a little while longer, right? But she represents an artistic spirit that sort of stands alone outside of that context as well. And I think you've built a case for this album's perfection that is in the spirit of that. So I appreciated that. And yeah, so I'm thinking a thumbs up from me too. But Michael, I think it might be down to you. Tell us, has Krissy done enough to earn a spot for Tidal in the Pantheon? Does Tidal by Fiona Apple go to 11? Is it a perfect album?
Yes.
Hey,
no questions. Jump right in. Yeah, we got to get the other sound effects in place.
We will. Fair. Well done. There you go. Right down to the finish line. There you go.
Well, Krissy, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us an excuse to listen to this album again on repeat multiple times over the course of the week. And I just might do another full from Tidal all the way to Bolt Cutters listen, because it wouldn't take that long.
It's an afternoon.
It's so satisfying. But before we let you go, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you're working on? Anything you want our listeners to listen to or watch or read or anything like that?
First, I would be remiss to say, if anyone out there who's listening and needs some package design, you should check out Seed House Design. Yep. We're in Chicago. We're really good at what we do. You should check it out.
Yes.
And then Chicago, the short film I directed for Paul Oakley Stovall, should be on Amazon sometime in the not too distant future. So check that out as well.
All right, we'll link to those things. Amazing. Like Michael said, this has been a real treat, and so happy to have been able to hang with you virtually. And looking forward to a time when we can do that all again in person. We might need to make that happen sometime in the calendar year, the year of our Lord 2025.
Oh, please. I would love nothing more.
Okay, great. We'll get working on that. People, if you're out there and you want to know more about us, then follow us on social media, because we're on there and we're doing our best to express ourselves in that space, even though sometimes it makes me mad uncomfortable. And I'm just gonna throw that out there. It's a hell of a thing to be perceived, and so we're working on it. So if there's ever anything that you want to let us know, leave us a comment, or if there's somebody you want to nominate to be on the pod, send us an email. All of that information can be found in our social media bios. You got anything else, Michael, before we get out of here?
No, I think just to remind, if you haven't listened to Tidal all the way through, give it a listen. Mm-hmm. Listen to her whole discography, as far as I'm concerned.
True ass.
And then after you do that, then you should come on back and listen to us again next week, or maybe later this week. Yeah, there might be a little surprise for you waiting later this week.
We do. It's not might be. We'll have another surprise for you at the end of the week. So come back.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.